Hey, Coach, welcome to our YouTube channel. We're super excited you've decided to join us. Let me know how we can help. Leave a comment down below. Make sure you subscribe. And if you're looking for more resources, you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for someone to help you through this journey of basketball coaching, check out teachhoops.com. It'll be up below or down below in the show notes or up above. Check it out. It's a great resource, and I think it will make you a better coach. Go check it out. 14-day free trial.
All right, episode 17. We are going to get to 1,700, right, Coach? Of high school hoop. If we get to 1,700, I'll eat my desk.
Okay.
1,700 once. That'd be a long time. I'll be in Florida. We'll be doing it. The background would be like palm trees. That would be awesome.
That would be great.
All right, what's this week episode? As it's cold out, and I wish I was in Florida.
I've heard other podcasts, and I've heard other things in books, and I read about it, and so I have some different theories from different coaches, and I think it's a good topic to talk to over our winter break right now. Is that do you, Coach, believe that locker room speeches are overrated? What I mean by locker room speeches is that ooh rah rah big old speech before games, and whether it's the quote that you decide. A lot of times we see those things on Hoosiers, or you see the movies of Coach Carter, and there's a lot of things that we don't see behind the scenes that really build into what really goes on the floor. And so I think as coaches, we have to be careful of how we approach the locker room, and how much is really what's said in the locker room really going to gravitate to what's going to happen on the court that night.
So let's break it up into 3 different speeches as I'm thinking about this.
Sounds good.
Pre-game speech.
Yep.
Halftime speech. Post-game speech. I'm gonna start in reverse order. Post-game speech used to be very, 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 very long. Now tends to be very, 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 very short. And the reason being is stuff that I've read too. They hear nothing you say after the game. They hear zero. Even if you win, if you lose, it's like they are gone. They have moved on, especially after a tough loss. They're not going to hear you. They'll hear you the next day, especially if their season ended. They'll hear you more the next day than they will then. You can tell them if you win a big game, we did these things well, or, you just kind of squeaked by, whatever. But those tend to be less than 2 minutes for me, if 2 minutes. And I think my record is an hour 10 post-game speech in Parker. My soul lost to Parker 16 years ago. There's stories about that. There's stories about my post-game speech there that I basically redid it. I said it once, and then I did it again. It was a 2-time speech.
And they're done that.
Yeah. So, but they didn't get anything out of that. It was more me just venting at that point. So that's the post-game speech. So I would try to keep those short, and especially if you're trying to teach them something in a post-game speech.
Can I touch on that a little bit, Coach? What you just said, I wrote down here. I think that's really important. I think just for young coaches or even veteran coaches, at the end of the game, you're hot, you're mad, especially if you didn't win, or things didn't happen. You're not going to get an opportunity to really give yourself the time to think and process. And you can never take back things that you say at the end of a game. You don't want to put yourself in that situation where you may have said something you really didn't mean because you were upset and angry. Right. You're better off allowing yourself to decompress, whether you go and you work out after the game or the next day in the morning, or you go home and you watch a little bit of TV and you get away from basketball a little bit. You're going to be a much better coach. You're going to have a much better relationship with your players if you allow your time to decompress.
Right.
I think that's really important. That period of decompressing for coaches is huge. The other thing I would talk about is that when you're talking to your players, if you have film with you to support some of the things that you're saying at that time, it just makes it more meaningful, because guess what? Film doesn't lie. So if their defense was –
I have said that to my son. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I coach boys volleyball. Boys volleyball is in the fall. I swear to God, all fall I was saying that to my son, because he's a setter and he wasn't turning. I go, tape don't lie. Tape don't lie. Tape don't lie. Tape don't lie. Love that quote. Sorry, side note. But
right, but sometimes you can do a lot more with a little. So you allowing to decompress and maybe watching that film and doing some notes on huddle, and you're relaxing a little bit. All right, how can I be able to do that How can I be able to show this person? By you just showing on film and making a couple notes, you've already made your point. Because
Right.
if they're getting beat baseline every single time, this one player, and you show it 2 or 3 times on film and practice in front of their teammates, they've got it. They understand they got some things to work on, and you just validated your point. But if you constantly hammer them in the locker room and you don't have any film, it's just a can of worms.
Right. Yep.
So I think what you just said about it is really about after game is huge, because there's you can do a lot more later on after the game and in a different manner that's going to be more beneficial for your team.
Yep. So, and as you were doing that, I was typing, Coach, if you heard that, because you basically just came up with a couple more podcasts. So I think at some point we'll talk about how, as a coach, you handle a tough loss. Yep. And then how do you decompress? How do you relax? So I think those are both things. I'm just thinking about what you said, and then I'm going, I know how I do it. So we'll talk about that later.
Because everybody's different.
Everybody's a little different. So then the next one is my halftime speech. So here's how I'm not going to go into halftime because I think that's another thing that we want to talk about.
For sure.
But the administrative part of my halftimes, or how people can use halftimes or even breaks if you're a youth coach. So we'll leave that for a different podcast too, because we have lots to do in the future. But my speech tends to be short at halftime and tends to emphasize 3 things. Everything says if you do more than 3, they won't remember it. And then the most important one is the last one that I say. It's similar to how I handle timeouts. But I'm going to go in there. I'm going to show them a couple things. I'm going to ask them if they have questions. I'm going to ask them if they have any concerns. So I want input from them at halftime too. That's usually why my point guard is seated right next to me, because that's the person is kind of like now there's another that has to be my captain, but it's the person I'm turning to if I have issues. So I try to keep it, again, it's 3 things. What do we need to do? We need to box out. We need to get back in transition, and we need to run this. Obviously, we're doing some X and O things, and I'm throwing my marker at my assistant coaches because they have different responsibilities. But you're not gonna reinvent the wheel at halftime. I think coaches expect that they're going to reinvent the wheel. I think the conversation you have with your assistant coaches is as valuable as what you're saying to your kids at that point.
I think I agree. I think one thing is I learned as being a young coach, I would storm in the locker room if I was upset right away. I've learned to sit with my coaches outside of the locker room, allow the players to decompress a little bit, sit and talk to each other a little bit, and talk to coaches. So what do you think? So what are your thoughts? The nice thing about when I was at college, we got the stat sheet printed for us at halftime.
Gosh, I know. When we go on the road, that's so nice.
It's amazing. And it's like, wow, you can do so much with that in so little time. And so allowing yourself to think a little bit before you go in the locker room is a great thing for you, because then you can be more specific on your 3 things that you talk about, because you could go on a huge tangent and you just wasted the whole time.
Right. Right. And I'm also a believer in don't come out 2 seconds before. I want them, especially the guys that are I want them to get a little bit of movement going into the second half. I don't want anything to be a surprise at that point. So I definitely want some movement going into the second half. And then the last one is my pregame. My pregame is, they should be able to tell me my pregame. If I've done my job during the week and I've done my scouts, I should, and I've never done this, I've thought about it, but I've never done it. I should be able to hand a marker to a kid and they should be able to write the pregame speech up. Now, obviously there's some motivational things and it's like, well, here's what we're playing for here. But as far as the X's and O's and the offense and the defense and our execution, if they don't know it at that point, it's just me talking to that is their 1 or 2 page Cliff Notes, Spark Notes scout that they've gotten already, is basically on that whiteboard. I'm basically reteaching what I've already taught. Hopefully I'm going, this is day 2 of the lesson of here's what we need to do to be effective and to win. And if we do these 3 things, we're going to be effective. What about you, Coach?
Yeah. Again, it's all of the preparation before the locker room that is really important. Speech is not going to be your all savior thing.
No.
But again, it talks about again, I wrote down some things because I thought they were really important. How you're going to get the team ready for what you want them to do is constantly doing it in practice till they're almost – it's so you've said it over 100 times of what you value, and
Right.
you're constantly going back to, your mantra, whatever you're going to do for that year of what your philosophy is in basketball. And it's got to be constantly said over and over till it's uncomfortably numb, where they're almost sick of hearing it, but they know that's the expectation. And
Right.
so, that is really, really important that you can't go out and put a quote or use some inspirational video that has some story that has no connection to you and your program about what your season's really about this year. I think often people gravitate to grabbing different things, but if it's not connected to what you've been talking about all season, it's just going from one ear out the other, and it's not authentic whatsoever. I think it's got to be really connected to what your mission is as a team for that season.
Right. And I think that's what you got to be talking about. I mean, if you're not, like, you're right. I don't know, tell you, the you rah rah thing, okay, that's going to last for 12 seconds. Them being all jacked, and the guy, you've seen the thing going around this fall and winter about the guy pushing the locker room door down, the football thing, which I think was staged. You seen that one?
Mm-mm.
No, it's like a high school game, and the coach is all in the locker room and blah, blah, blah. And for some reason, someone's videotaping the football locker room door going outside. Well, all of a sudden it falls down, and they all run out, all kind of like, yay. Great. First of all, why are you filming a door? Because it's staged. But second of all, it's like, that's only going to get them jacked for 30 seconds. Then they're going to come back down. That's why we tell guys that might be the time. If you see a team that's like that you got to come out and just out execute them for 30 seconds, and then we'll just it brings them back down. So that's where those Hoosier speeches and knowing the gum he's chewing are great, and they're great for movies, but they're not going to help.
But they're only successful if they're connected through the whole season. So I'll give you my last. I really want to make a point because I think about it. Last year when we were in the state championship game, everything that we talked about all season was this idea of having energy from the beginning all the way to the end. And so what we did before the last game of the season, we got a big thing of chart paper, and when I wrote the quote, "Everything begins and ends with energy," which we've been talking about all season, and the guys signed it. And we put it into our locker room. We brought it on but the only reason that was connected is because we talked about it all year. So those little things can help you out in the end of a big game because you've constantly talked about it all year. But if it's not connected to what you've been talking about all year, it's not gonna happen for you.
No, and you got to let them kind of come up with that, and that can be another podcast. We can talk about how we come up with themes and motivations. Well, maybe that will be next year. All right. Have a go. See you in the new year.
All right, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Coach, I hope you like that. If you're looking for more resources, you're looking for a mentor, check it out, teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. I do not think you'll be disappointed. 14-day free trial. It is there for you.